After leaving Sutton High as a very straight and tedious 16-year-old with short hair, I came here. It all changed. Within a few weeks of being here, my hair grew, my clothes became old, and I developed an interest in rock music. This was a leaping board to the Van Dike. It was also great fun being here. I would like to pay tribute to Mary Peter. Mary Peter was our art history lecturer. She was superb. She taught us to think for ourselves. She taught us to question why things looked the way they were. She opened a whole new world to me. Mary Peter, thank you very much. This, there it is, was known as the Palace Court Annex. I studied mostly at Regent Street, but a lot of the real fun was here with Mary Peter. We had the most extraordinary trips with her to places. She set our minds free. And while we're here, we must not forget the history of this place and its link with Catherine of Aragon. For Catherine of Aragon, read links with Henry VIII. Worth looking into. It's amazing to think that somewhere here, Catherine of Aragon may have walked around with thoughts of Henry VIII. My road to the Van Dike started with a walk along Regent Street every day, term time, for 5 or more years. It would take me to Sutton High School, the end of Regent Street. On the way there, I would get sweets in this shop here that looks like it's been closed for a very, very long time. The landscape of Regent Street has now changed almost beyond recognition to those days when I would get the bus from my house to Harvest Home and then walk along this road. But the school still stands. I can just see it now. We can just see the school appearing now. Just as it appeared in the 1960s when I was here. Came here in 1965, straight from Ford School. So Swilly boy from Ford School, who'd become Milehouse lad, still at Ford School, had moved to Sutton High School for boys. Here it is. What a grand and imposing building it was. It still is. It's apartments now. Many of the staff wore black capes. Despite possibly looking stern, it was a barrel of laughs here. I had a ball. I would like to particularly thank Thundergut Sanders for inspiring my interest in science and chemistry. In fact, one year, Thundergut Sanders, also known as Roy Sanders, wrote to my mum and dad telling them to ensure that Stephen, that's me, is very careful with his experiments with explosives at home. Can you imagine that today? Happily, I was very careful. I never hurt myself, all my fingers, all my toes, and my eyes, and my hair. I stopped it when I was about 18, but it was great fun while it lasted. Today, it would get me in all sorts of problems, I'm sure. But in those days, it was just a letter home from school. Here we see the main school, and just across the lane were the huts. No housing and flats and what have you. The Chinese takeaway, however, is still here after all those years. And I remember sitting in the huts, which are now on my left, looking across here and thinking, what on earth goes on here? In fact, I've just noticed it's now a Thai street food establishment. Sounds good. Of course, in those days, my idea of interesting food was a Vesta. Just across from the school was the ATC hut. It's now long been removed, and I remember having lessons there to play a clarinet by Stinky Stoyle. I don't know why he was called Stinky, but I never learnt. Of course, in those days, I didn't realise that the significance of North Street running from what was the beach line in Sutton Harbour in medieval days, right up through, up the hill, way up the top of the hill there, past the school, to Tavistock. My interest in that was years and years away. As you can see, the school is quite tall. One of the great fun things that would happen, unless you were on the receiving end of it, is your school bag would be emptied out of the top window and all the paperwork, hotels and textbooks would float down slowly to the ground. While I was here, I was a tedious young lad, boring in the extreme, little imagination, but slowly, with teachers like Thunderguts Sanders, in things being thrown out of the top window, I began to see another side of life. Against the wall in the playground, I started to hear the names of Nice, Colosseum, Cream, and these LPs, that's records, were passed around with the most amazing art on them. Slowly, my brain was turning to other things. But the Van Dyke was still a little way away. Under the very playground where I saw the artwork of LPs by Colosseum and Cream, etc., little did I realise that underground, a metre under my feet, was a World War II air raid shelter that would not be discovered until 1991. And on its walls were graffiti, and I mean high quality graffiti, of Churchill, Goering, Mussolini, Winston Churchill, and other fine artworks. There were sandbags left behind. It was as if time had stood still. It was under the feet where I stood every day in a line to go into school. Sadly, it's been destroyed to build the parking lot for the people who live in the flats here. So in the summer of 1970, after doing my GCEs and not doing particularly well, it was time for me to leave here and move on to art school and study photography. I was accepted at Plymouth College of Art and Design, and it's there that I'd be transformed from what I have often said as a tedious schoolboy into a long-haired, useless git and layabout. This made me ideal fodder to then go that bit further to the Van Dyke Club. And so it's a farewell and adieu to Sutton High School for boys. You served me well. You served generations of Plymouth young lads well. I will never forget you, and you helped make me what I am today. I'm not sure if that's the right thing to say if you knew me. When I would walk home from school every day, on the left would be a row of houses. Today, it's the home of the modern version of Plymouth College of Art. I believe this opened probably in the early to mid 1970s after I'd left, but I did go back there in about 1978 to do some further studies, and I had a great time there as well. I think everybody who goes to art school has fun. It's a fun place. As I came close to Harvest Home, my bus stop for going home, I would pass this lovely red brick building. Still much as it was then, I think, from my recollections. Lots more bins though now, don't forget. And as I came around the corner here, I would see Harvest Home. By God, where's it gone? Look at it. It's changed beyond comprehension. This is Or is this Harvest Home? Harvest Home being named after a pub, but also the area. And the bus stop was called Harvest Home. But look at it now. It's all gone, washed away with time. For those interested, this is the front view of Plymouth College of Art. The sign here says, "The world needs creatives more than ever." I agree, and I hope, even though in my late 60s, I am still creative. We are now looking at the Harvest Home bus stop on the other side of the road from here, where I got the bus to and from school. I think even the bus stop has now been removed, and the Harvest Home pub would be somewhere on my left. Totally washed away, including the bus stop. The added extra, if there was such a thing, of getting the bus to and from Harvest Home, as the bus conductor would say, was its proximity to Public Central School. Public Central School came in two halves. Public for boys, not interested in that one. Public for girls, yes, I'm interested. And at the bus stop across the road, there were loads of girls coming into school in the morning. But best of all was the bus stop on this side of the road, round about here, where there would be actually hordes of young girls in green uniforms with green hats. Very good memories. And unfortunately, that's all there really is regarding that subject. As you can see, it's a fine building made of limestone. Somehow it survived the Blitz, and even more surprisingly, it survived Plymouth City. For those interested, here's the view the other way, with the new art school in the centre right. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to put Sutton High School behind us and move on to the Van Dike, which is this way, about there. And so here we are, Woolston Street, Plymouth College of Art and Design, Department of Photography. What an amazing place. It was here I learnt all the skills I have today. Composition, lighting, to look deep into an image, to see. So many people today do not see, they just merely look. This place made me and was a valuable link on my way to the Van Dike Club. As I said earlier, I came here as a timid schoolboy, straight out of Sutton High School. I was tedious, boring, timid as well, short hair, no imagination. And yet after a while here, all that changed big time. My hair grew long. I got my clothes in Oxfam. Occasionally I wore a headband, and sometimes I painted my face. My parents said nothing at all and took it all in their stride. As you can see, it's an old school, and inside it still had the atmosphere of an old school. The toilet stank of carbolic disinfectant. Peter was the caretaker. I so remember him having a piece of toast in the canteen. I would like to say a thank you to the staff that were here. Tony Mears, Dick Hill, Russell Milligan, Rosemary Saul, Mike McCloy. When I first came here, the head here was Ivor Innes, but he was soon replaced by Roy Sims. I thank you all for what you made me. Without you, I would not be here today, standing here in a hot August with an iPhone in my hand, making this short video. I would also like to thank Mike Top, who became my lecturer when this establishment moved to the one in Drake Circus in the 1970s. Of course, in those days, you could park anywhere in Woolston Street. Parking's a bit more tight now, but I'm pleased to see that at about 9:30 on a weekday, there are a few spaces. I never visited any of these pubs as I was underage. And I had no cash. I was at art college, only funded by pocket money. Who do I remember amongst my fellow students? In the year ahead, there was Chris Abraham, Roger Edwards, Andrea Carey, and a young man who later had a career in Westward TV. He wasn't doing photography, he was doing something then called ETV, Educational Television. In my class, we had Betty Fox and Keith Spear, who I'm still happy to say I'm in regular contact with. Betty, who I knew as a young woman, is now 90 years old and as sprightly and artistic as ever. I also remember Trevor Ball. The name's now struggling. Trevor Ball, Jason Strahans, Jeremy Stroud, Jan Strahan, Eric from Norway. It's hard to remember, it's a long time ago, but they were very happy days. It was fun, 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 fun. Yet despite all the fun, we worked hard. Here, I heard talk of Jethro Tull, Quintessence, The Band, Brinsley Schwartz, The Grateful Dead. I had to investigate this. Where do you have to go? The Van Dyke, and that's where I went. It's nice to see that art still lives on in Woolston Street. On the right here, we've got this superb sunflower on a internet box. And across the road, this is absolutely superb. Just look at this. Absolutely stunning. Fantastic work, isn't it? When I was at art school here, photography was a wet process. It involved getting your hands wet. Developer, stop bath, fixer, wash. These things, particularly when doing colour photography, had to be done very accurately. So the students here, or the staff probably, had a brilliant idea of recording a cassette tape. And when you started the process, you would press start and it would say, put the film in the developer now, 1, 2, 3. And while it was in there, it would play music. So you wouldn't fall asleep, and also you knew the tape hadn't stopped. And this is where I was introduced to Yes playing Yours Is No Disgrace. I remember it so well. Den, da, den, 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 da, den, den, den. Remove the film, 1, 2, 3, 4. Transfer to stop bath, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yours is no disgrace, den, da, den, den, and onwards. All the tracks were progressive rock, so it was rammed down my throat. I shouldn't say rammed, I was happy to have it. So now it's goodbye to my memories of dark rooms, music, fun and long hair. And we're going to go to the Van Dyke. Let's go. Of course, before we went to the Van Dyke, we had to go to the pub. And what better pub than the Waterloo? Let's go to the Waterloo. Before we go to the pub, there's one person I must mention that I admitted while I was filming at Woolston Street. This is the man who, if you offended, would stop you doing anything. Yet you very rarely offended him. He was kind and helpful, but he was the boss. The technician, Jim Badley. Big Jim, what a guy, so helpful, fantastic person. I thank you very much, Jim. Okay, we're now walking up to the Waterloo. Not been here for years. Let's have a look. Oh, remember the windows. Superb stained glass. Just look at that, isn't it gorgeous? Hang on. What's going on here? The Waterloo is an ex-pub. It's gone. I've just found out that it went about 4 or 5 years ago. All we have now is memories of the Waterloo, which was of course important on the way to the Van Dike that was up the hill. I've just come up the hill from the Waterloo and I'm going down Albert Road now to have a look at the railway. I've been told it's still there. There we see the railway. There she is. Okay, let's cross Albert Road. Have a quick look left and right. Yes, I'm good. And there we see the railway, much as it's always been, I would think. Let's have a closer look. Yes, as I remember it. The railway and Exmouth Road to the Van Dike just across the road. I must confess, if no one's listening, that I did do underage drinking in the railway. But because I had no cash, I could only afford a half. And that's per night, the lot. Here we are in the railway, it's just the same. And just here is where I used to stand. I remember it so well. I also remember the wrought iron that ran across here. Just this here. And I think at the time it might have gone around there. Here we have the railway. I've not been in here since 1972. It's just the same, and I can just see myself as a young man standing here and asking for a half. This truly does bring back the memories. I have time travelled back to 72 when I was last here in an instant. The atmosphere is still the same, except in those days I never came here at 10 o'clock in the morning. It was always in the evening. But happy days. Once I've finished my drink, which is orange juice of course, we're going to go to the remains of the Van Dike and we're going to have a look at the other place, the police station. And we all know about that, don't we? So I've finished the drink. Now it's time to go across the road to the dike. Let's go. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, I was born in the 70s, so I ain't getting in that video.
Across Albert Road, without getting knocked over, of course, which is quite easy today, I think. Across we go. And we're in Exmouth Road. The trees are still here, probably grown a few feet. We're along Exmouth Road now. The Van Dike would be centre on our right, except as we all know, the Van Dike is no longer here. What was possibly one of the greatest music venues in the UK has been erased from history. I remember walking along here, hearing the sound of the disco before and after the gig. What a place. Today we have apartments occupying the footprint of what was the Van Dike. However, bits of the Van Dike do remain. Nothing to get excited over. But I'm pretty sure this wall running along here was here. The exits that were flung open after the show were back there, and the stage entrance was there. All the vans that were very often in a dilapidated state would be parked along the road here, just here. And the entrance to the Van Dike, I would say, be around about here. I'd say here maybe. That's a lower hall would have been. So I'd say about here would have been the entrance to the Van Dike, with the adverts in the shop next door here. There's a famous photograph, he says, taken by himself, of course, Steve, of the outside of the Van Dike, taken from round about here. So we would have the window with the adverts in here and the entrance in here. We'd then go in here, turn right along to here to see the band with the stage at the end. I can still see it now. The Van Dike was a fabulous place. It's where the musicians mingled with the audience. My friend Dave Batten and I actually met Loudon Wainwright III while having a wee in the men's loos. Would you get that today? Quite often the band would buy a drink at the bar with everybody else. There was almost nil separation between the band and the audience. Security as such didn't exist inside. There may have been one person unofficially at the entrance, but that was it. There was no need for it. Why is there such a need today? We all have our memories of the Van Dike. For me, the one that stands out above all else has got to be Stray. Where else would you get a band who would have a thunder flash in a dustbin? In the dustbin, probably about 5 feet from the closest audience. Can you imagine the health and safety that would be required to do that today? I so remember the disco after the gig when they'd often play Stray. I won't say the word or sing the songs because the Facebook police may not like it, but it went something like this: den 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 da 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 den 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 da 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 den den den. Well, there you go, something like that anyway. And that would echo along Exmouth Road. I remember the heat as the doors were opened, the steam, the mist that would emit. I remember the floor being pools of beer, hopefully. And the atmosphere inside, to me, was of friendship and fun. The Van Dike was a fantastic place. It made me, it really did. So we have to have a huge shout out to the Van Dike family. Without their imagination, this would never have been. They brought music to Plymouth. Top music of the entire world came to Exmouth Road. Thank you, the Van Dike family. I've come across the road now to the entrance of Devonport Park. All things have to come to an end. And the end of the Van Dike did come. But it came in a way that was so unnecessary, so vindictive, so hurtful, and so unnecessary, it almost beggars belief today. It's all to do with this place here, which forever in Van Dike history will go down as Exmouth Road Police Station. On the night of the Fairport Convention gig in 1972, there was a police raid. I was not there because I only had pocket money. I could only go to the gigs I really wanted to see. And at that time, I'm sorry to say, I was not a particular fan of Fairport Convention. A huge number of police burst in and the audience were made to stand, hands on head, detained. Major headlines in the Herald: drug bust. Appalling. Yet so few convictions. As far as I'm aware, none for drugs, but 2 for underage drinking. But this gave evidence to all those who wanted to shut the Van Dyke down. And by all those, I mean, sadly, Plymouth City, possibly the police, and all those who thought the Van Dyke was a den of iniquity. Well, unfortunately for me, it was not a den of iniquity. I had no iniquity there at all, ever. In fact, I don't know anyone who did. However, the local authorities really had it in for the Van Dyke, and they used the fact they caught, I believe, 2 people drinking underage. I wasn't one of them because I wasn't there that night. A reason to withdraw the alcohol licence. This meant, of course, there was no way the Van Dyke family could sustain employing a band without the sale of beer. There was just not enough profit in orange juice. So the Van Dyke slowly passed away into history. But for people like me, it will never die. Those hot summer nights of sitting on the floor in the Van Dyke, cross-legged, as close to the stage as you could ever imagine possible, impossible today. Hearing the most fabulous music. Can we really get a grip on Pink Floyd playing in Exmouth Road, just off Albert Road? Nice. Genesis. You name it, it was here. All down to one family, the Van Dyke family. Thank you, the Van Dyke family. Your memory will live on. I hope you found this film interesting and it's brought back a few memories for you. But for me, the memories don't need to be brought back. They're always with me, whether I'm at home or every time I'm anywhere near this area. Even driving past, perhaps, I hear the sound of den 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 den. Goodbye and thank you. Let's go home. Set the controls for the heart of the sun. Set the controls for the heart of the sun. Dun dun da 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 dun. Set the controls for the heart of the sun. The heart of the sun. Da dun da 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 dun. Set the controls for the heart of the sun. The heart of the sun. The heart of the sun.